this image of me being 5 years old and being abandoned from my parents.
Wow.
And that you could tell there was emotion. She started to cry, and we're in the protein house. And I was like, cool. What do you want to tell yourself? So what can you learn from it? And I'm not going to share the learning because, again, it's private. But as soon as she learned from it, there was just this huge transformation. And you guys can tell when someone goes through a physical transformation, like a little shiver in the body, a release, a big sigh, a breath out. And I was like, cool. What do you want now instead?
You have wondered what you would be able to do if you were the ultimate version of you, right? You would then have an easy time creating what you want. And yes, effortlessly enjoying life too. Now, you may know this already, the influence you have over your reality is far beyond what you've been told. Soon, you realize that your outer world is merely a mirror of your inner world, and we're here to connect the dots for you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to GODMODE. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to GODMODE. We're going to jump right into this very, very useful episode about how to deal with negative emotions. When there are world events and or events inside our community or even in your personal life that may be triggering you, what do you do? And after you listen to this episode, or even in the midst of it, you'll find that there are people that could utilize the tools within this episode. It may be you, maybe your family member, your friends. Feel free to share this episode with those who certainly could utilize this formula. Now, we are not going to dive into the full explanation and or even the entire formula that we call the resolution formula, which has helped thousands of people resolve their stuff, if not more. And the former versions, which are even, they're longer and even more detailed, they have helped so many more people around the world. So we have the opportunity today to share with you a snippet that allows you to be able to immediately utilize that for your own self in your life and or for those around you. So welcome back, Michael and Brady. It's good to have you guys back.
What's up, guys?
It's good to see you. This is an important conversation. I think people go through tough things and they want to know, what do I do to handle that? Like, I would like some actionable steps. Give me the SOP for dealing with things that seem outside of my control. So that's what we're here to talk about a bit today.
Yeah, I mean, we're not the guys, if this is your first time listening to this podcast, we're not the guys who say, hey, just go sit around and meditate, do a cold plunge, do some breath work, all great things, right?
That does work.
Yeah, I do all of them, right? Those things are kind of like almost like the AP chemistry of personal breakthrough, though. And what's like the basic understanding of how to control your own negative emotions. So that's what resolution form is about, getting learnings faster from the negative emotions that pop up. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, since we were talking about cold plunge and meditation, I think a really good way for people to understand how that serves us versus how our formulas at Upgrade serve you, or I mean, anyone who's listening, how they differ. Let me explain it this way. So you're cooking dinner, and for some reason, the stove, like you're turning on the stove and you put the food in the pan and you're cooking the food, but then you try it, you're like, wait a second, this food doesn't taste very good.
Me cooking anytime.
So people go and change what's going on at the stove. They're like, oh, let me change the stove. Maybe it's the fire that isn't hot enough, right? And perhaps when they turn up the fire, make the stove stronger, perhaps the taste of the food may change. It becomes more well cooked, and it allows you to enjoy the food in a different manner, right? Perhaps the food does need to be cooked more. Maybe you're changing the pan to like a griddle, or maybe you're changing it to a more more high-end cooking device, and allow your food to be cooked in a device that's more appropriate for it. That's all good and all, but if what you put in the pan or the pot is just garbage, You can cook all day and change the temperature all day. You can do all that. At the end of the day, the change is not significant enough because it's not changing the root cause. And what we're talking about here is exactly that. A different analogy that might be even simpler to understand, perhaps a better analogy, is that if you put a piece of bad software on a magnificent computer, like if I bought you a $10,000 MacBook Pro and we put, or Mac Pro, and we put a old Windows operating system on there, like from 1995, how well do you think it'll run, right? That is not going to run well, and it's not even made for that operating system. The problem with a lot of people's minds and or their reality is not that they can't perform, but their software can't perform and will not let the hardware experience the full capacity of its potential. Now, I'm an analogies person because I think it explains and reaches deeper into the unconscious. So I will give you one more and then I'm going to explain the formula. If you guys ever drove a fast car, there's such a thing called a limiter. You can put a limiter on it and cause the car to not be able to go as fast. But imagine you just went and spent $400,000 on a Ferrari and then you put a limiter on it. Oh man, you might just be taking the fun out of it, especially if you drive it on the racetrack, right? Now, some of you may resonate with this, some of you won't, but consider how much investment you've put in, your family have put in, or society has put into you over the years for you to become who you are. And how, most importantly, how much you have invested in yourself, right? How much hard work you've put into yourself. If you have a software limiter there, you are not allowing yourself to be who you really are. So the framework of this resolution and the ability to remove pain that we want to share with you will inherently free up this limitation. And this limiter, or the earlier analogy, right? The bad food or the bad software, those are all content of this machine that we need to optimize. So simply put, when you have negative emotions, the best thing to do is not to hold on to it, but resolve it. And what we're going to do is I'm going to share with you a little bit of this formula and how it works, why it works, and all that fun stuff. Michael's going to then share with you some stories, and Brady will too, because Brady and Michael have seen many of the testimonials, many of the people's experiences when they resolve what they need to resolve. So let's dive into what this formula is. This formula essentially takes an emotion, a human emotion, which is the result of the unconscious mind having something to communicate, but this thing that it wants to communicate is not broken down to a point where the conscious mind can understand and or unpack. Meaning the emotion itself is a message delivery mechanism, and there's a message waiting to be decrypted or unpacked. Now, the negative emotion is negative and that it keeps nudging on you, or it's intense enough that you need to be aware of it. It forces you to be aware of it because it in and of itself is a notification of something important. Many humans choose to ignore it for an extensive period of time, and what happens with that is that they are then stuck with wasting energy to keep having this notification come up and come up. And it'll come up in different areas of life. It's actually really painful to have negative emotions and not know how to resolve it. So we've developed a methodology based on many wonderful tools that exist prior, but our goal is to keep it short and simple and easy, yet extremely effective. Just like back in the old days, if you want to delete a file on DOS or the old Linux systems or Linux style systems, you have to use codes and you have to know what you're doing. Otherwise, you delete the wrong file. It's no good, right? The system could have problems. Well, nowadays you can drag and drop precisely the files you don't want. And that's what we're talking about here. When it comes to changing and optimizing our human mind, we have created a way for you to effortlessly resolve stuff, easily, quickly, and precisely. And the most important thing that I want to share with you today is the one question: what can I learn from it? Now, a lot of you will say, what is the significance of this question? This question allows you to unpack the message hidden within a negative emotion. So then the negative emotion, being the notification, has no reason to exist once the message is unpacked. Now, of course, in the main training in sales and mental programming and or beyond, you'll find deeper tools that are far more comprehensive. But I'm going to tell you right now, when you're sitting on an airplane, let's say next to someone who needs their emotion resolved because they're having a panic, because they got a text that their girlfriend, boyfriend broke up with them. Or, I don't know, there's a number of negative emotions that shows up in your daily interactions with humans, other humans. And or something, you guys are all safe and healthy, something happened to someone and you're like, oh man, that sucks. Can't help but feel this way. Well, you actually could help by using these formulas that we have developed. And one of the key components within one of the formulas, one of the most effective formulas, is what can I learn from it so I can let it go? And now I'd like to share with you one more story, and then I would love for Michael and Brady to chime in and share what they have witnessed when it comes to resolution. So a quick story is that I remember one time I was feeling negative emotions. And look, this is a human thing. We feel negative emotions, and they're just signal. I remember one time I was looking for my wallet and my keys, and I was moving out of an old place, an old apartment. And that afternoon, I had to get everything out of there, but I couldn't leave because I couldn't find my keys and wallet to be able to get in my car. And I had all these boxes. I'm like, where is my key? It could be in any of the boxes. It could be anywhere. Hundreds of boxes. So I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to leave on time, right? But my unconscious mind has another idea. My unconscious mind's like, hey, why didn't you call your wife? She can help you find this. I'm like, she doesn't know where the key is, but I call her. And she said to me on the phone, what can you learn from it so you can find the keys now? Very direct, very to the point. What kind of message? Listen, anything that doesn't happen the way you want it to happen, you can use this resolution formula to learn from it. And learning is the key to changing emotions, and changing emotions causes you to change a lot of things. Emotions changes behavior, changes outcome. So, and the impact is beyond physical. So when my wife asked me that and continuously asked me that, even though I said I couldn't find it and I don't know where it is, after a few times, she continued to say, what can you learn from it so you can find it? And finally, I relaxed and humbled myself, sat down on the floor, and I'm like, all right, where is it? And seconds, I got a feeling that it would be right by this one couch, in between the couch and the table, and it was tucked under. It was completely hidden. Would have never found it, but I learned from it, and then it appeared. So many of us are missing the keys to the next level, to the next step of our lives. Even though my story was not metaphoric, consider it still as a literal thing as well as a metaphoric education or lesson. You are wanting to find the keys to the next level. So now you need to resolve whatever it is so that your eyes, your mind can reveal to you where the keys are. So, Michael and Brady, if you guys don't mind, please share with us some of the things that you've witnessed over the years when people do use the full version or even this partial version of the resolution formula and found themselves experiencing some pretty wild things.
Yeah, Brady, you want to go first?
No, take it away.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we got hundreds of clients that I can think about. One of the ones that really stand out to me is one that happened about a year ago. We were coming out of our Sales God event that we had in person here in Scottsdale, and a group of us go over to the protein house together. And one of our clients there This is her first time event. I'm not going to say her name. I could tell things were coming to the surface. And that's made to happen, especially at our in person event. We're there to push and pull with love and respect to get that unconscious shit out of the way, bring it to the surface to make sure we know what to help you out with. And I could tell some things were beginning to boil over for her. And resolution formula is made to be nice and simple in conversation. So, like William said, you could use this on an airplane with someone that you've just met. As long as you've built enough rapport, you can help them get past it. Now, I want to give a big reason why this is super important. If we have negative emotions that are holding us back, usually that's what's leading to that nice P word, procrastination. Procrastination is a silent killer, guys. When we don't go after the things we want in life, it's usually because there's a negative emotion holding us back from moving forward with clarity, with conviction towards the things we want. So, using this formula pushes past this because once you get the learnings, you have richer, fuller choices available for you to take those action steps. So, back to this client, we're in a protein house. There's 6 of us there, and I'm sitting next to her and I'm just asking these questions in the order, and I'm holding space for her to vent a little bit. And when I asked her the third question, the one that William had mentioned, what can you learn from it so you can let it go completely now and remove the problem, she immediately she's like, I have this image of me being 5 years old and being abandoned from my parents.
Wow.
And that you could tell there was emotion. She started to cry, and we're in the protein house. And I was like, cool. What do you want to tell yourself? So what can you learn from it? And I'm not going to share the learning because, again, it was private. But as soon as she learned from it, there was just this huge transformation. And you guys can tell when someone goes through a physical transformation, like a little shiver in the body, a release, a big sigh, a breath out. And I was like, cool. What do you want now instead? And she's like, I want to feel whole. I want to feel like no matter who I'm with in any romantic relationship, anything out there, because she was searching for a romantic relationship that no matter what, I feel whole with myself. As soon as she got that learning, she was just like, you could tell she felt whole again just by saying those words. So I share that because she wasn't going after the partner that she truly desired. She was picking people that were filling in those places before because they had abandoned her in many areas of her life and they were showing up as mirrors because she wasn't giving that to her. So this resolution formula, it's a tool to get learnings faster. It's a tool to give yourself fuller, more richer choices. I've used it. I continue to use it. William talked about an example that he uses. We use it so often because we want it to be automatic to the unconscious mind that when shit does pop up, it's automatic. You get the learnings reward right away. You get faster and you move past procrastination. So that's one story. We got hundreds of more that we could talk about, but yeah, Brady,
No,
you're up.
it's so true. The thing that people want to do immediately when a situation or a feeling comes up is they would like to be in control of that, right? Like, I don't want to get taken on a wild ride of emotions. I don't want to go through the ups and downs. I want to get to a centered, logical place like as fast as possible because I'm in a situation and you never make good decisions if you're not in a calm, composed place, typically, right? Like if you're not in a good headspace, you may not be making good decisions in that moment. So I like that you said this can become automatic. And I think that that's really important to do because if you're in that spot and you say, where can I possibly start in taking the next step forward and sifting through this mess and sifting through the situation, the first step is to say, what can I learn from this? And it's going to take some time and it might take a little bit of practice. You might pick it up right away. Right now we had an episode where we talked about ChatGPT, and I'm glad you brought up this being automatic. So ChatGPT is an AI tool and it's incredible. It's got a large language model. It'll spit all kinds of stuff out. The thing with it is you have to understand how to tell it exactly what you want. You have to construct a prompt. You have to build it out and say, hey, I want to sound, like Jim Carrey. I want to help me write funny jokes in the style of Jim Carrey. And you have to really, if you know what you're doing and you've played with this tool, you really have to give it an overwhelming amount of detail because it's a computer, it's a system, it's a program. Now, very recently, they have come out with pre-built prompts. So before you would have to basically write it out every single time. Now you can pre-save your approach. I want to sound like this. I want it to do these things, and you can pre-save that entire prompt. And now what's my point? The point is that you have an automatic set of steps that just get tossed in for you. And so when you are confident in your ability to go, come hell or high water, whatever situation I'm in, I now have a tool in my arsenal to approach it logically and to at least start to get back to a little bit of a calm state where I can make an intelligent decision, and then I can learn from it. What can I learn from the things that are happening in my life? And just like ChatGPT with built-in prompts and everything being like structured out for you so it saves you time, this will save you so much time and so much learning. Because if life is a hurricane and you're just a leaf, it's a sorry way to live. And if life is actually an ocean and you're a captain with a perfectly competent vessel, chart out where you're going. You now are in a lot more control. And I think it's kind of comfortable. I don't know. I like wind tunnels, and, I think it would be fun to be a leaf in a hurricane, but I have no control in that situation. And that stops being fun after a little bit. Instead, I want to focus on how to gain control of an otherwise maybe unwanted situation. And the way I do that, and the way that I've learned from William and from Michael and everybody else, there are 4 steps to this. Today, we're just talking about 1. But if you can identify what you can learn from any problem that comes up, you will find a lot more emotional composure. You'll find that you're going to get to a balanced place sooner, and you'll find that the problem will probably go away. Maybe not magically, but it'll change. An opportunity might be on the other side.
Yeah, the learning from the problem is really what you're looking for, because while you said the problem might not go away exactly, but I promise you, the more you practice this, the more precise you get, the problem will begin to go away. And this is a more practical tool. I joked about it earlier, cold plunges, breathwork, meditation. I do all those things, guys, right? But how practical is it if you're in a fight with your colleague or your romantic partner? You'll be like, I'm going to go do a cold plunge right now, right? And get some learnings. Or I'm going to go meditate, or I'm going to go do some breath work. I guess you could, depending on the situation, but it's just not that practical to do that. Versus with the resolution formula, there's 4 steps. And those who've been in our trainings, you can easily, those our clients who've been in our trainings already know that once you practice this, it's easy to do right there in person. And all of a sudden, learnings come to you quicker. And as Brady was saying, be the captain on the ocean rather than a leaf just blowing through a hurricane. That sounds sucks. Although I'll go to iFly with you. We can go fly together.
Oh, I'm so down. This episode is sponsored by iFly.
Dude, if they were a sponsor, that'd be fun.
But I think people, look, we're in the middle of the Republican primaries. The Democratic primaries will be next. We have an election season ahead of us, 2024, where there always seems to be some new, some health thing that seems to come up every election cycle. Very strange. There are going to be a lot of things in your future that you're going to need to approach no matter what. So choose to approach it with some sensibility, with some calmness. At the beginning of the year, there was all this talk about de-dollarization. The Fed is saying we're going to have a hard landing. We don't know what's going to happen. Jerome Powell is now this figurehead. And there was a lot of concern. I remember asking myself, when I was looking at the macro of all of these big titans and tectonic pieces moving, I'm like, okay, well, what can I learn from this? And when I can learn from this, I think I'll be able to feel better about things that are outside of my control. And my learning was, as I focus on the things that I can control, and I focus on the wins that I can find right in front of me, seeds I can plant and opportunities I can harvest, those things, not that they're not affecting me in some way, but they're a distant thing. And if I focus on good things, and we're all mirrors of each other, and maybe there is no one outside, maybe I am living Michael's life and Michael's living mine, and we've all lived each other's life in this prism, kind of way. If that's the case, what if my focus, if I can control it and remove emotional negativity faster, what if that makes things in my life go better? And that was the result for me. That's what happened.
The quicker that you get learnings, right? Even though it's not really, connected, right? Maybe you're thinking about the outside things, what's going on in politics. It's not really your responsibility or anything like that. It's like the faster you get those learnings, who's to say that that energy doesn't get passed out into the world? Who's to say that doesn't get projected out? And that's where this is a very interesting tool that we hope we hope one day that all of Upgrade is an open API source, just like Tesla, and we can share all this content with people. at a level that people are just continuously using it for themselves. Because the faster that one gets resolution, really, I mean, what can you not do if you're clear about what's going on in your mind, your heart? How can you much better can you work within your business, with your romantic relationships? I remember there was times where I felt so, either or, dichotomous really, about my relationship with myself and with my romantic partner. Just for a little context, for people who don't know me, I'm 36 years old, never been engaged, never been married. I'm now in a committed relationship with a girl I extremely love. Up until that point, though, I had this dichotomy of, am I actually going to get into a marriage? Do I believe in it? Those type of things. So I was creating this either or for myself. And I remember that when I used resolution formula a couple years ago, a massive learning happened for me that I was created that, well, I can have good marriage and be a good father and be a good business person and be a millionaire and travel the world and have good health. I was doing these either ors, these plus one plus a negative one. It was creating the zero outcome. So when I did resolution form, one of the massive learnings for me was, well, when did I decide that? First of all, it got back to an early age, and I remember just having this weird conversation with my grandmother to be like, well, if you want to be a good father like your father, you're probably going to have to find the job that's local to you and, do all these things here in New England. And I remember not really liking that answer because I'd be like, I'm not staying in New England. I'm getting out
Like,
of here.
heck no.
What are you talking about? So now that I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, I think there was this unconscious journey where, like, the more I travel, the more I get away from New England, the more I'm not going to be able to be a good father or a good husband. What a weird thing to believe, right? It
Bet
makes
you a
no
lot of people
logical
believe it.
sense. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if everyone else believes it, but for me, it's like that was a learning that I had. I was like, man, that's a weird belief to have that's really projecting me into a life that I might be alone at one point. I could be 75 years old and have never found love because I just held on to this learning, this belief. And it's like, do I actually want that? And I was like, no, I don't want that. So that's an example of how you can use it. And what Brady was talking about earlier about using it and practicing it on things that are not even quote unquote related to you, that's the skill set, right? Practice it when you don't need to practice it, when it's really not related to you. So when things do come up that are truly stressful for you, that are truly like, this is in my face right here, right now, you have already practiced this skill set. And at that point, it's easier for you to get the learnings and upload them into your own conscious mind.
And it can look like a whole bunch of different stuff. I used to work at a place where I was very concerned about people talking about me behind my back. I tormented myself with it. I don't know if the listeners have ever felt that way before, but the company was, it's very political. It's playing a game and kind of moving up in the ranks. And that came with a degree of talking about other people behind their backs. And I used to agonize over that, because I was like, what are they saying about me? It was something that was outside of my control. And when I finally asked myself, like, what can I learn from this? Like, why am I agonizing over that? This was years ago. I was able to determine that I was like concerned about reputation, as if I couldn't control that with my own abilities. I was concerned about perception, as if I couldn't have a good one-on-one conversation with somebody and change that wholesale. And so the second I was able to just pause it and say, these are things that are outside of my control, and if they're impacting me, there's a lesson to learn here. And the lesson is, A, don't worry about what people think, right? You got good people in your life. They love you. They surround you. They're going to support you through everything. So don't worry about what other people are going to do, that no matter what. You know how many tens of thousands of conversations have happened about you and you weren't in the room? That's how a manager works. That's just a thing that happens. So why give energy to that? Why give energy to something that is completely outside your purview of anything you can do? And instead, figure out what you can learn from the emotions, resolve them, and say, okay, cool. I'm just going to be this rock solid person that when anybody meets me, despite what other people might say, I change their opinion. Forget anybody else. And so this resolution formula is what we wanted to share with you today. And this may come at a perfect time for many of you. And if it has, be sure to notify, hit the bell on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, so that when you get the notification that our episode is live, you'll be the first to know when your next upgrade is available. You'll be the first to hop in there, download that info, and move forward powerfully with your week. This has been an amazing conversation, Michael. Thank you for what you shared. Will had to head out, and so I think we're going to wrap here. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I would echo what Brady was saying. I hope that this comes at a powerful, good time for someone who may be going through some resistance. I'm sure that there's always times where we're going to be going through resistance. Resolution formula is there as a tool to help you get through those things faster. Once you pierce that boundary, on the other side, there's a lot of good stuff. So please use it. And as Brady said, share this podcast with someone that you think could help as well.
Take it easy, guys. Life is good, and it gets better every day.
That's right. See you.